Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. Pretty special guest that we have on this week because I actually have never fished with them. At some point, I hope to. Oh, yeah. But the thing about fishing is you get a lot of opportunity to go out and help people, but also teach people. And Joe Floyd, that's what he does. So
yes,
tell us about your guide service and a little background history.
Yeah, I run Tennessee Guide Service, Tennessee Fishing Guides. We're kind of based on Old Hickory Lake. Fish all Middle Tennessee lakes there. Been guiding there for probably about 15 years now. We pride ourselves on helping the weekend angler, teaching them, teaching them everything we can and how to make their time and utilize their time good on the water and make it more productive for them as far as through electronics and patterns of fish throughout the summer and spring and months and everything. So I really love to do the teaching of the whole thing, and it's not just me taking them out there and letting them catch their limit as quick as we can and getting back to the boat ramp. It's I really show these guys how to do it and hopefully make their time on the water more productive.
Well, before we give them some tips on catching some crappie, first talk about the reservoirs that you guide on so that they can tell, because some of them that you were talking about, they're completely different reservoirs because now you're down here, it's summer, and Mississippi's completely different than fishing maybe at Watts Bar.
Absolutely. We fish a lot. Most of our lakes are going to be like river system lakes, like Pickwick and Old Hickory. That's going to have the Cumberland River or something like that. You come down here, these lakes down here are watershed lakes. They're pretty open, not a whole lot of creeks. Totally different fishing. Back home we're going to do a lot of ledge fishing. We're going to do a lot of deep water fishing. We're up here, we're fishing in 6 foot of water.
Right. That's a deep hole.
Right, and that's a deep hole. Here we're catching all these fish this weekend like 6 foot of water. So, I've been lucky to be able to be a guide and travel around the country and tournament fish and learn this stuff. And I really pride myself in being able to pass that on to everybody. Right. So that's kind of what we do.
There you go. So, and besides that, you also do some boat setups and electronic trips too.
I do a whole lot of that. Back home, there's a lot of people that live scopes come out. People, they get this stuff, and not saying that, a lot of boat companies will set stuff up. Or your backyard guy, he'll set stuff up that's not exactly how it should be. As far as transducers being level and side scan, and I'm not a computer guy. I never was a video guy, but I had the first fish finder that ever come out, and it's one of my things. I've always just been into the fish finder type deal, and I've learned everything that I could about it. So I try to help a lot of people out, teach them what they're seeing, teach them how to level their transducers when their boat's running at a certain speed, and just everything, proper wiring, to get the picture and to learn how to be able to find these fish consistently and make them feel like they can go to any body of water and find fish and catch them. And a lot of it is learning lake maps. So I teach a lot of that. I teach a lot of learning how to read lake maps and contours and different lake maps. And that's kind of what we pride ourselves on.
So what lake map are you using?
Well, I use the new Humminbird VX, and I run the new Navionics. I run both of them because they're not both the same. I think they both have good points to both of them. For one instance, Humminbird I think has a little better contour than Navionics right now. I know that Garmin's bought Navionics out and they're coming up and they're doing a little more stuff. But I was fishing a tournament on Kentucky Lake about 2 months ago, and I found a big hump in Big Sandy that was not on Humminbird maps, and if I wouldn't have been running both maps, I would not have caught the fish that I caught off of that hump out in the river. And so they're both good in both ways, but I run both of them, and you're going to find stuff on some maps that you won't find on the other ones. And you know, I do a lot of my research at home. I have both of those on my phone and on my computers, and before I go to these bodies of water, you know, I'm studying. I'm making marks at home to what I'm going to look at when I get out there on that lake to try to find that, and I teach that a whole lot of what to look for, you know, on new bodies of water. Because, you know, with your weekend angler, you know, we're trying to get them into being able to feel confident to come out and fish some of these tournaments, come out and fish some of these events, and they just, you know, we need to help them out into how to get out there and to be able to do that and feel confident about being able to get out there and do that. And so that's what I really try to teach in a lot of my trips. Now, we go out and we catch fish, but you're going to listen to me teach a little bit and try to help you out. So
what do you have on the front deck of your boat? What
on the front deck of my boat, on the front deck of my boat, I'm running an 8617 Garmin for my live scope, and then I'm running a 1222 Garmin for my other live scope, and then I run a 12-inch Humminbird for mapping on the front, and then at the helm I'll run two 12-inch Humminbirds.
All right. Are you running like a 32 and a 34?
I am.
Is that what the deal is?
Yes, sir. I'm running a 32 and a 34.
Let's explain what that is first, though.
Well, the 34 is the new Garmin Live Scope transducer. The 32 is the first one that came out. They both have their ups and downs. I think the 34, the cone angle is a little tighter, meaning how your cone angle is to what you're seeing out front. So getting your bait into that cone angle is a little tighter. Chasing open water fish, catching roaming fish out in open water, it's a little bit tougher because you're keeping your cone angles a little tighter, but it does help you at a distance. When you're trying to size a fish at 50, 75 foot and even looking through brush and finding fish on structure, the target separation is a little better on the 34, but the 32 has definitely got a little bit wider of a cone angle, and it's a little easier to catch roaming and fish with. So we've played with it. You know, we've done a lot of research and tried it on a little bit of everything. Sometimes we'll run one in perspective mode, one in forward mode. You know, that way you can see more stuff out to the side of you. So, but that, you know, when you get into doing a lot of that, it's a lot for the brain to process because you're on two different screens and you know, you're going, what's enough, when's enough, you know, and stuff like that. But we've worked with it all, and they're both great, and I definitely run both of them for sure.
Right. So give them a tip if they don't know much about or don't have a lot of experience in using live sonar out in front.
The thing that I tell most people on forward-facing sonar is, and it's like my granddaddy told me with work and everything else, you're going to get out what you put in. And I know it's tough for the weekend angler to go out and spend time practicing because they want to go out and they want to catch fish. But this thing takes hours and hours and hours and hours of practice to get used to. So my tip to you is to practice. You know, what I did when I first when Live Scope first come out, get you a marker buoy with a lead anchor, let it hang under there 10 foot, and throw it out in the water and practice looking at what you're seeing, and then practice getting your bait down to that lead marker. And don't do it, you know, start out to where it's easy with no wind, but then practice doing it, you know, in a current with wind, so where you can track that and you can track it. Because I mean, it's almost like, I mean, it's leading a dove. And you know, 80% of the people that come to me say, well, I see the fish and I cast it, but my jig never gets down to the fish. Well, my first question to them is, which way was that fish going? And they look at me and say, and I'm like, well, that fish was not sitting still. You seen him. So you have to have forward progress, because the cone angle is so narrow, it's like looking through a paper towel holder. That's what I tell people. I said, you know, everything's front to back. And so we have to have forward progress towards that fish to keep him on the screen. And so practice that, with like I said, with a weight down below. And the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. And I mean, it's a very useful tool. But I spend most of my time, 80% of my time, at my steering wheel behind my Humminbirds, locating these fish, and then the Live Scope will help me come out and find the bigger fish within that group.
So are you up north when you're not in Mississippi and fishing in there?
Yes, sir.
That water's more open, and a lot of channels in the Tennessee River Valley.
Yes, sir.
You fishing the TVRs, fishing those, and so current and crappie. How does that mix?
I'm definitely looking for current breaks. When I'm looking for those corners in those creek channels. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Those creek channels coming in and out off of a major river system, in and out of a creek. I'm definitely looking for those corners and looking for those current breaks. And then I'm trying to find structure or suspended fish on those current breaks. When I'm at home looking at mapping before I go to a new lake to fish a tournament, those are the first places I'm going to go check. Absolutely, the first places I'm going to check is those deeper creek channels going in off the river and in a current break. Meaning, water's going to flow north to south. So when you're looking in there and you got your map looking true north, any bends in those creeks that are the water's coming over and making a break on that backside is definitely where those crappie are going to be hanging out.
All right. Well, give a tip on fishing. What color lure should you use in like dirty water and lightly stained and super clear? How would you have like that 3 different colored waters? How are you going to adjust? Because you're talking about fishing from Tennessee down to Mississippi.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do?
On my real crystal clear lakes, deep lakes, reservoirs like say Dale Hollow Lake, really, really clear lake. We're just going to throw something small because they're mostly black crappie. We're going to throw a small, just a natural color, a monkey's milk to a blue, something like that. Real natural. One thing I'll tell, and I taught my kids when they were younger, and it was funny because I'd always ask them. I asked them the question you asked me. They're like, "What are you going to use today? It rained. The creeks are muddy. What are we going to use?" And 90% of people are going to tell you they're going to throw something white, chartreuse, something that those fish can see in a muddy water, and that's not right. We're going to throw a black and chartreuse in a very stained water. You take a glass of chocolate milk and you drop a white hair jig in it and see how good you can see it. Then you drop a black hair jig in a glass of chocolate milk and you can see it 3 times better than you can that white one. People don't realize that black shows up. That darker color. So low light conditions, I'm going to go with a darker color. Sun comes out, crystal clear lakes, I'm going with a more lighter color. Like a monkey's milk in a really muddy stained water, they're not going to see that as good. Real muddy water, I'm going to use a bigger bait for more vibration so they can feel it. So that's kind of my go-to. I'm not a real huge different color guy. I'm mostly a black and chartreuse and a monkey's milk, and I'm going to use those 2 whenever the conditions are right. So
sounds like I'd fit perfect in your boat because I said there is one color to fish and it's black and chartreuse.
That's my number one go-to.
As long as you got that up in the river in Beaver Lake, you basically are going to catch fish.
That's exactly
and good
right.
Fish.
And good fish. 90% of the places I go, I throw a black and chartreuse.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
So give them a tip on rigging. Like, what is your favorite way to rig up for one pulling when you're fishing with? Are you using the weight and the bead stopper? What are you using?
A lot of you come down here and we do a lot of long one poling here in this shallow water. But from where I come from, and fishing most of these river systems, in the summertime, these fish get deep on us. They get down there, in 22 foot of water, 25 foot of water. So most of the time, I'm pitching to these fish with a 7.5 foot rod. I'm going to be using a 3/16 ounce jig head with a small split shot above it. Everything has changed since, we always slow rolled our baits and we watched our line and we were just very slow presentation for crappie. And we're still like that when we bring it across the crappie's head, but we can see that fish now and we want that bait to get it to that fish on that screen as fast as we can because another fish can swim by, that fish will take off, that fish can spook. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So that's why we are tending to use heavier stuff now. I use a lot of tungsten now because it's half the size as lead. So a 1/4 ounce tungsten head's going to weigh be half the size of what a lead head's going to be. So we're going to throw 1/4 ounce tungsten heads a lot with a split shot above it, and the only reason for that is just trying to get that bait to that fish as fast as we can.
All right.
So that's mostly what I do. I'll throw 8 to 10 pound canine fluorocarbon. Don't use a whole lot of braid.
Yeah, that was my next question. Are
yeah,
you a braid man or
no, I'm not. Tendency, and the only reason why I'll throw some braid on my personal poles, but with a lot of clients that aren't used to braid and stuff, you have a lot of tendency to let it wrap around the tip. It's not, with a fluorocarbon, it don't have the memory. So it's a lot easier with that way to go that way. But K9 makes some of the best line, and that new fluorocarbon and stuff. It's come a long way. It's really good stuff. So.
And in general, when you're taking clients out, it's you're teaching them in one pole. Then
I am.
Any
most of the
spider
time
rigging
we do.
Not?
Yeah, when I come down here in the summer, we do a lot of power trolling here, and it's actually nice to get away from one pole and then come down here to Mississippi and do some trolling because we stay on that screen and up there for so long. Which we love it. But yes, we will. We'll come down here and we'll push double minnow rigs that Steve Coleman and them come out with. And we'll push those a lot, and we'll power troll with Les Smith. So we do that a lot. My boat's rigged up to do the same thing. We'll push 8 poles off the front and pull 8 off the back.
Right. Are you pulling crankbaits off the back?
We'll pull cranks, our long lines. Yep.
Long lines.
Long lines are pull cranks. Yeah.
What kind of boat do you have?
I've got a 2021 Nitro Z20.
Okay.
Yep.
So 20-foot boat. So you're pulling with that. So using a Garmin trolling motor?
No, I'm with an Ultrix, and the reason I'm with Ultrix is because I run the one boat network through all my Humminbirds. I can run my Minn Kota Raptors. I can run my trolling motor all through my Humminbirds, and I'm a Humminbird man on the side scan. Every depth finder's good for what they've got, but.
Some excel at different things.
Well, there is so much different things, and I've went through them all, and it's all trial and error. But when I can go to a new lake and I can range that side scan out there to 150 foot, and then I can see clearly to find fish, that's a big thing to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So.
Well, that takes us to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures has a complete line of hard and soft baits. You can check them out at picolures.com. And I'll tell you what, they have plenty of lures to go catch crappie with. Are right now, of course, during the summer, the crankbaits are phenomenal, hot things. And they're in most of the stores, especially in Mississippi and around Kentucky Lake. Some of the stores have them up in there. So you can check them out there. Ellis store in Paducah, he's actually got them. But you can check it out, or you can get them online.
That's where I order mine, straight through PICO online. So,
Tell us a little bit. Give a shout out to your sponsors.
Volunteer Boats. They keep me up and running with all my servicing. Hook and Bullet sunglasses. If you guys hadn't never tried them, I'm telling you, it's amazing with your electronics. Being in poles, obviously my granddaddy, when we were little kids, that's all we ever fished was being in poles, so I'm happy to have them. Crappie magnet, K9 fishing line, cornfield fishing gear, man. Their mounts, we run high dollar, that 86 17's an $8,000 unit on the front of that boat, and I use cornfield fishing gear to protect my investments on my boats, and and all of us are like a big old family. It's good stuff, so
all right.
I appreciate it.
There you go. Sounds good. Well, like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.
That's right.